Everybody, I'm Dr. Jay Harness. I'm the medical director at breastcanceranswers.com. My co-host for this, Lisa Cipriano-Snyder, is not able to be with us today, but we have a really important and special guest with us today, who's Brett Miller, located out in the Kansas City area. And Brett really has a very interesting and unique story. We've done very little in the way of talking about male breast cancer here at breastcanceranswers.com. And yet the reality is that male breast cancer does exist, and that men should be doing breast self-examination as well as, quite frankly, examining their testicles, because the incidence of testicular cancer is higher than it is of breast cancer. And Brett, welcome to Breast Cancer Answers. Great to have you with us out in wonderful Kansas.
It's great. Thank you for having me. It's a great opportunity to be able to speak out about male breast cancer and just try to help spread the word and spread the awareness that, men, it is possible to get it.
Boy, I guess. So, Brett, I know a little bit about your story and your foundation, but I'm going to turn it over to you. Give us sort of the scenario that led up to your diagnosis, feeling a lump, and then I, as a breast surgeon, will probably ask you a couple medical questions, okay?
Sounds good. Well, it all started when I was 17. I was at one of the physical nights at my high school, Shawnee Mission East, here in Kansas City. And this is one of the nights that doctors put on for free. You can go in and get your physical so you can get cleared to play the sport you want to play in for that school year. And I had felt this lump maybe a couple weeks before it. Went to there and I mentioned it to them, and they're like, you're 17, you're going through puberty and all that, so it's probably just a calcium buildup. So keep an eye on it and let us know. Go to your doctor and stuff if you feel any change in size or difference in it or whatnot. Several months later, getting ready for my physical for college, get all my shots up to date. Mentioned it to my pediatrician at that time too, and he said the same thing, that it should just go away, keep an eye on it, let us know if it changes or whatnot. Essentially, fast forward.
Well, let me just interrupt for 1 second, because your story is really very, very important, because I, as a breast surgeon, see young men just like yourself. And at that age, actually, instead of a calcium buildup, what it typically is a form of called gynecomastia, which is enlargement of the male breast. It can go on with hormone imbalance. It can affect one breast or it can affect both breasts. Actually, this is for our audience now, not for you. I'm not accusing you of anything, okay, what I'm about to say. But actually, enlargement of just one breast like that in your age group is often from marijuana smoking, believe it or not. Okay, and as I said, I'm not accusing you of anything here. So that what I'm doing is defending the doctors a little bit, because this kind of enlargement of the male breast goes on at this time in life. You generally outgrow it, and as I'll share with you in a little while, your story is not typical at all of cancer of the breast, and I think I know what's going on with your story, but I just wanted to interrupt and make that point. Okay?
Got it. I can tell you, I've never done any drugs. I just don't. There's no point in it. Some friends are, always talk about it, and I don't see any, any payoff for it. So I've never touched the stuff, but I do understand. I've heard that before too, just because from what marijuana can do and stuff. To your body and stuff, but anyways, back to 7 years later is essentially how long I let it go by, because I never felt the change in the size. It never started really bothering me. So at 24 is when I was diagnosed, but about 23 is when I started to kind of feel a little change and stuff, not in the size or anything, but every now and then it would be sore. And there were times that I could, if I was sore, so I rubbed it or whatnot, and if I put too much pressure on it, I did get a discharge, a yellow, like orangish discharge, that at some point, if I squeeze it too much, it turned red, so it looked bloody, I guess.
Right.
I was like, thinking to myself, that's probably not the best thing. It's probably not right, but
Right.
just like any other male, sometimes we're just like, oh, it'll go away.
Right.
I don't want to feel like going to the doctor, all that stuff. But eventually, I went to go get a new physical, or a routine physical, good health insurance through my job and everything, and went through the physical. Doctor said, "You're all good. Anything for me?" And then I mentioned the lump, and he turns right around and goes, "Hey, go to this place and go get a few scans. Go get an ultrasound." And so I went to the place and stuff, and then they told me, "No, you're in the wrong place. You got to go to the other building right behind it." And it ended up being the women's clinic. And so, that is definitely an eye-opener, awkward situation to walk into the women's clinic, as a male walking in there. You see a few other males there, but they're there with their wife.
Right.
Sitting in the chair right next to them. And
okay. Well, listen, again, let me interrupt you for just 1 second, because as you progress with this thing, the really important thing that you talked about was a discharge from your nipple. All right. Now that we do not see with enlargement of the male breast from hormone imbalance or marijuana or whatever the reason is. So the nipple discharge was clearly abnormal. And you also described it as sort of being reddish, if you will, and that was indeed very abnormal. So the next doctor that you saw, who said get a mammogram and an ultrasound, and I'm sure they probably are going to tell us they did a needle biopsy after that. That doctor, congratulations, because that doctor was spot on, okay? So anyway, we left you feeling really awkward walking into a woman's imaging center. So tell us more what happened then.
Well, it was my primary doctors who sent me to go get the ultrasound. So I walk into there, they hand me the clipboard, all the information to fill out, name, address, age, so on, and health insurance. And then the next set of questions were, are you menstruating?
Right.
When was the last, this, are you pregnant, so on, whatever. And I'm like, I think I'm done with this questionnaire and stuff. So I, waited for them to call me back. They did the ultrasound. The nurse technician called in the doctor that's on call there.
Right.
And it was a female doctor. She comes in, she looks at the scan, looks at me, does like a triple take, and then looks at me and says, "Hey, let's do a mammogram just to make sure that we cover all the bases."
Yep.
I looked at her and asked if that's physically possible. It is. It was a little bit of pain during the time, but it's 10 seconds of pain that essentially saved my life. So.
Right. Very good. All right. Well, again, now finally you're being properly worked up, Brett. So tell me, how old are you at this point in time when the workup is going on?
At this point, at 24 I was 24 during the whole thing. Diagnosed April 28th, April 27th is when one doctor, he took the lump out. I mean, he looked at the scans. There was no needle biopsy, like you had said, possibly and stuff. He looked at scans, and he just looked at it and said that he wanted to just take it out. They took it out on the 27th. He calls me the next day as I'm leaving one job to go to the other job and tells me it's breast cancer. He hasn't read too much about it in the prelim pathology reports, and then he called me back in 3 to 4 days with more information and kind of left me at that. So I was a little shell-shocked there.
Sure. Now, Brent, let me interrupt again for a second, because you've got my curiosity up. Do you remember them telling you that this was either a secretory or juvenile breast cancer? Do you remember those two words by any chance?
No, they never said anything like that, or at least I never heard him say that. When I talked to him and stuff, I just said everything that I've been told earlier, when I was 17 and everything, that the doctors always said it was a calcium buildup, so on, whatever. And, based on what he saw on the scans, he kind of agreed that that's what it was. And either he agreed or he didn't want to tell me exactly what it could have been, or he just didn't know at the time.
Sure.
So it, I think it was barely an hour procedure, not even that. That they took the lump out, and then he had called and said it was breast cancer, and then the ball just kind of started rolling. My case was brought up to quite a few doctors in the Kansas City area. As my name wasn't used at all, but it was just a case study.
Yep.
What and everything. And we met one of the doctors my dad actually knew as we were meeting with the my geneticist. And he was out in the parking lot, and he asked, which one of you was doing, in here or whatnot. And my dad goes, no, it's actually my son right here. We're meeting with the geneticist and so on. And he stopped and he goes, it's you. Oh my God, we just saw your case just yesterday. And the whole board with all the local doctors and everything, and all that. So kind of turned into a celebrity in the doctor world here.
Right. Now tell us, Brett, so the genetics, that was going to be one of my questions for you, and our audience should know that you and I are meeting for absolutely the first time. I learned a little bit about you by going to your website, which I'll have you tell us more about later. But so you had a genetics workup. The things we're looking for our listening audience and watching audience, we're looking to see if you could possibly be carrying a BRCA gene. We're also looking for an unusual disorder called Klinefelter syndrome. So are those the two things they were looking at for you?
They were testing for the BRCA gene 1 and 2.
Right.
And essentially within a 48-hour to 72-hour period, my mom and my dad had to sit down and call every one of their aunts, uncles, brothers, everybody that they could to try to get a family history workup of any cancer of any sorts. And from what they found, there was no direct line of my mother, grandma, whatever. It was all just a few aunts on my mom's side. So there was no direct line of breast cancer.
All right, very good. The other disorder in young men like yourself, besides being a gene carrier, is what's called Klinefelter's. Instead of XY, the chromosomes that you're carrying, it's XXY, and a small percentage of those who carry that chromosome mix can, in fact, develop breast cancer. So if I'm sure the genetics folks know that and may have looked for that, but you might just jot yourself a note, or when you watch this video, ask them in retrospect, gee, did anybody test, do I have Klinefelter syndrome? Okay?
Yeah, I had never been told that syndrome, or they never said that they were going to test for it. So that's the first I've heard of that. So it's a good thing to ask my doctor about that one.
There you go. Well, that's what you get for hanging out, if you'll excuse the expression, with me today. Okay. So anyway, so what they did originally was in essence was what we call an excisional biopsy. They took the area out. And then everyone said, in disbelief, we can't believe this. And so the good news is a whole bunch of people talked about you. What happened next then, Brett?
Well, we met back with the doctor that did the surgery. He was very adamant about doing a double mastectomy. But we got his opinion. We wanted to go for a second opinion, no matter what, because we just didn't want to stick with one. We wanted to make sure we had every basis covered. He was adamant about the double mastectomy, but he has never done a mastectomy on a male before. So I would have been his first thing, which was a little scary and everything. But with getting in with all these other doctors, or my case being brought up, we got connected with Colleen Johnson at St. Joseph's Breast Center, who is at the same hospital and stuff, but she helped us out, and she got us streamlined to other doctors to meet with, which is eventually who became my surgeon for my mastectomy, was Dr. Lon McCroskey, and he had done up to 13 at the time of my surgery, and since then he's done close to 35.
Wow.
Since my diagnosis 2 years ago. So he's seen quite a few. He's got the experience. And he did great work. He's an amazing doctor. And so, from April 28th when I was diagnosed, after meeting with him, we set my mastectomy date on May 18th. And up until then, they were still going to do a double mastectomy. But at the time, my job, I managed a pool at a country club. I was, that week of the May 18th is when I was opening up the pool. And so I was like, okay, I need to do one of these right now because at the time that it hadn't spread, or at least they know it hadn't spread then. They wouldn't know more until the surgery. But I was like, I can't do a double one and be down for almost 2 weeks. I gotta get back to work and everything. So we just did the one, and on the day of, he got a call from his friends at MD Anderson and John Hopkins and everything, and they said, do not treat the male breast cancer exactly like the women. Only do the single mastectomy and stuff. So they saved one boob. I still got one.
All right. All right. Now, before you and I went live with our Google Hangout, you want to share with our watching audience your first name and how you shortened it ever so slightly?
I actually never shortened it. My mom chose, it was Brett with one T. I was born 2 weeks after the Kansas City Royals, go Royals, won the World Series in 1985. So it was a name that was brought up, and Brett Saberhagen and George Brett, and she chose to go with the spelling of Brett Saberhagen.
Okay, well, just one T though.
With just the one T. And so we, after all this was coming about, my doctor, he had told me, he goes, you're going to be the face of male breast cancer. If you're willing to speak out about it, I believe that you can be the face of male breast cancer, build the awareness, get everybody out, all males out there checking themselves and let it go. So, we started a foundation, which now we just kicked off a couple weeks ago at my high school with their Pink and Blue Night. Just building the awareness. Our goal is to build the awareness to the youth, both men and women, that early detection is key. It helps. It helps save lives. It helped me. So we started. It's the Brett Miller 1T Foundation.
That's where the one T comes in here, right?
Yes.
Because you were elaborate the one tit.
The one T, one T, my name, one tit, and one nipple now. So I've always been joking about this the entire time because the way I think about it, you need laughter. I mean, laughter is one of the best cures. And if you take this too seriously, your friends, your family, everybody around you feels like they're walking on eggshells. They can't say the right. They got to be careful what they say. They don't want to make you mad. They don't, whatever. That's not me. I want to have fun. Life is about having fun. Don't take life too seriously. You'll never make it out of life. So I've been having fun with this. I joke about it all the time at my work, at both works. There's been a couple times at my second job I bartend, and we've had some costume parties and everything, and I always play off that. We had a little circus party and stuff, and I had an eyeball painted over my scar.
Oh, that's
it looked like I was winking every time.
Very good. Now, before we go on some more about your foundation, Brett, tell us. So you had a larger area removed. They checked your lymph nodes, correct?
Yes, they did. Yeah, they checked the lymph nodes. It was a 1-inch margin around the nipple. They took the nipple. There's a 1-inch margin around it. They took the breast tissue, and then they had they said 4 lymph nodes they took, but it didn't spread. There was no sentinel node, all that, So essentially right there is when my doctor said that, I was clear. I didn't, it didn't spread. They caught it, whatever, which I'm shocked. 7 years I had the lump. They said it wasn't always cancerous, but, it hadn't spread. I was like, well, I'm very lucky.
Right. Now, let me ask you this. So what happened? You healed up from your surgery. I agree with the opinion from the MD Anderson Hospital, as long as you're gene negative, which they tested you for. Although, again, please remember to talk over the genetics folks the issue of Klinefelters. What happened next? You healed up nicely from your surgery. What additionally happened then?
They did test for did the OncoDX test. On me and stuff to see what my treatment was. And they kept on addressing me and calling me, emailing me and my mom. I put her as my power of attorney at the time just because it was I have 2 jobs. I was overwhelmed at all this, so she kind of helped me out a lot with this whole situation. and they kept on addressing it as Mrs. Brett Miller and stuff, and she
Yeah.
kept
All
on
right.
correcting him. No, 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 it's the guy.
All right.
So they did the OncoDX test, and it helped me make my decision on going with the chemo and stuff, because the
Okay.
test came back and said that I had a 22% chance
Okay.
of cancer coming
Okay.
back.
All right. And were you estrogen receptor positive as well then?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe the cancer was about 70 or 72% estrogen base.
Yep. Okay. Very, very good. Do you remember what the size was, just out of curiosity? We measure everything in terms of centimeters. Do you remember how
Centimeters.
big it was?
Uh, no, I don't. I mean, I could look at. I mean, my basis was, it was about like the size of a lima bean, so it wasn't
Okay.
extremely
Uh,
large.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's probably about a centimeter and a half or so in size as far as a lima bean. So great.
Sounds
So
about right. Yeah.
you went ahead and did the chemotherapy, and then after the chemotherapy, Brett, what next? Did they put you on an anti-hormone pill or not?
Yeah, they started me on tamoxifen.
Yep.
Um, I was on that for a couple months, but my mom thought that it kind of changed me and stuff, because they said it was, my mom said I was being a little more angry. I didn't notice it,
Right, right.
so whatever. My oncologist, Dr. Rick McKittrick, he took me off of that
Yep.
and
Okay.
put me on the Arimidex. So,
Ah,
but I'm on
okay.
the generic anastrozole and stuff. So I've been on that um,
Okay.
for quite a while now, about a year and a half, almost 2 years
Okay.
now.
And you're tolerating that well?
Yeah, I haven't seen any change or whatnot. A pill a
Okay.
day
Okay.
keeps the doctor away, I guess. So
Yeah, there you go. So one of the things, again, when you visit with your medical oncologist, because he'll actually have your pathology reports, and also the staff at Breast Cancer Answers can give you my email address. If you would like to email me copies of your pathology reports, my big curiosity, besides the Kleinfelders for you, is whether you had what's called a secretory or juvenile breast cancer. I have about a 6-minute video here at Breast Cancer Answers that was a question from a young lady outside of London, England. This is, oh golly, 7 months or more ago. It's a very, very rare and unusual form of breast cancer. It can occur in young men as well as young women, and typically it's a less aggressive form of breast cancer. So if you have a chance and want to send me or share with me any of your reports, it would just be fascinating to get in on the action, so to speak, like the doctors in Kansas City. I'm confident you were a celebrity in their minds, okay?
that sounds great. I'm sure my doctors would be happy to talk to you and stuff. Dr. Larry
Yeah,
Geyer was my geneticist,
great.
so that's definitely something that you guys can talk about and maybe
Okay,
know a little bit more, because
right,
he seemed,
right,
talking with his friends and stuff, they seemed to be boggled with just how
right,
I was
right.
diagnosed. How did I get breast cancer?
Right. And my guess is, and again, I'm just speculating now, but you may have had a little what's called gynecomastia, enlargement of the male breast secondary just to some hormone things, and then within that developed this really, really unusual form of breast cancer. You look great, you're doing great. Well, tell us a little bit more about your foundation. What other activities? I think bringing awareness to young men is really important. Hopefully, they're bringing awareness to their moms about the importance of screening mammograms, but share with us a little bit more about your foundation and what other things you're working on.
Yeah. Well, like I said before, we did the pink and blue night. It started out it's been for several years as just a pink night, teamed up with the Susan G. Komen Foundation, and this year we started it as a pink and blue night to spread the word, to the youth and them, that the men can get it. So we've teamed up with Susan G. Komen. They kind of reached out to us because I've been working with them briefly and stuff, also with the American Cancer Society and everything. within the last 2.5 years. Just essentially just building the awareness. And with my foundation, we also, my mom one night, almost 4 o'clock in the morning, was on the Ford website, saw their Models of Courage webpage on Facebook, and chance to enter to win their free car, breast cancer car, and everything that they have. And also saw a post about a casting call to become a Model of Courage for Ford Warriors in Pink. I was chosen for that I was chosen for that last year.
Well, congratulations, man. That's fantastic. Cool.
Yeah, right here. This is the whole thing that we did. This is all last year. They flew us out to LA. They chose 11 survivors. This is the first year that they used all survivors as their models. They chose 11, 2 of which were males. There's me and another male who is 61, which is coincidentally right around the average age of male breast cancer. So I'm like, you can see 24 all the way up to 61, and so there's a huge difference there. But we went up there. We modeled all their apparel. Where 100% of their net proceeds of all the apparel that they sell go back to the fight against breast cancer. They have 4 different foundations that you can donate to. You can choose which foundation when you check out, when you order online on FordCares.com, which foundation you want your money to go back to, either the Pink Fund, the Dr. Susan Love Fund, Young Survivors Coalition, or the Susan G. Foundation, Race for a Cure. And it tells you how much you're donating back of what it is. I mean, it's at least half of what you're purchasing. So it makes you feel good that, hey, I'm buying something that's going to spread the awareness, but I'm also giving back at the same time. So
outstanding.
Been a part of that for the whole year. They did notify us towards the end of last year, beginning of this year, that they chose us, and we are staying on again for this year. So I've got all that coming back up in March. Do more photo shoots, videography. They did several little mini documentaries on me and everybody else that was a part of it. If you go to FordCares.com, you can see all the videos there. There's the initial documentary they did, and then they flew in during the summer and did another documentary on me and one of the other survivors that is local, Tina Harold. She's one of the other survivors. She was diagnosed at 36, I want to say.
Yep.
I always forget. But
well, listen, my friend, absolute congratulations on all this. Please continue this level of enthusiasm, Brett Miller. I just think it's absolutely fantastic. Let's just talk for 1 second. You are absolutely correct. The more typical age for male breast cancer is men in their 60s.
Mm-hmm.
Also, men who develop breast cancer is a red flag waving around to look for the BRCA gene. Or if a woman comes in to see me who has a history of a male in her family with breast cancer, that's a big red flag to look for the BRCA gene. And so there's lots of lessons here. Breast cancer in men, Brett, makes up right around 1% of all cancers in men. Interestingly, it's treated just identical to the way you were treated, in the sense that it's treated just like we do with women. In other words, the breast is so small in a man that we can't do conservation. We can't do lumpectomy. So the mastectomy you had was appropriate. Checking the lymph nodes was spot on. Doing the chemo based on your Oncotype DX score. And by the way, Genomic Health is a sponsor, is our primary sponsor here at BreastCancerAnswers.com, and they do actually have quite an experience of doing Oncotype on male breast cancer. And I just had a case here a few months ago, sent it off, got a low recurrence score, so the gentleman only needed the anti-estrogen medication and not chemo like yourself. So you've been treated perfectly, and then being on a drug to block estrogen for at least 5 years, you're being treated perfectly. As I said, I'd love to chat with you offline or with your doctors, because my interest in whether this was secretory breast cancer or not is sort of one of my intellectual curiosities, if you would. So any final thoughts you'd like to share with our viewing audience?
go check out my website. It's checkthem.org. You know, we've been having fun with this whole thing. I mean, it's catchy.
Right.
It gets people. We had these T-shirts that said, "Guys, don't be afraid to touch yourself." You know, it just build the awareness. Tell everybody it's possible for men to get it. Women, it's becoming diagnosed earlier than what people think. I mean, just know your body.
Right.
I mean, you're your own best doctor. I mean, check yourself. If you feel like there's something wrong, go to your doctor.
Yep,
Bring it up to them.
absolutely.
If you don't like their opinion, go to another. I mean, Tina Harold, she went to 3 different doctors and did not leave on that third one until they gave her a final answer, because they were like, "Oh no, it's nothing," because hers was up near the collarbone.
Right. Exactly. Well, listen, you also are reinforcing one of the messages we constantly say here at Breast Cancer Answers, which is the treatment of breast cancer is a team, multidisciplinary approach. You did exactly that. You went to a higher level of care, which was exactly the way to do. Any other final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I do, and it just popped in my head as I went like that. We did start with the National Consortium of Breast Centers. We will not start, but they've been around forever. We did a updated video for how to correctly check yourself. It is on breastselfexams.org, and I was the male model. There was a female model, and there is nudity in it, so parents beware if you're going to show it to your kids, whatever. But it is how to correctly check yourself. Moving, it's up to your collarbone, under, down below your breast, over to your armpit, but how to correctly, light, medium, and deep pressure to, feel for the lump and so on. So we went out to Las Vegas last year for their big convention. They presented us with an award and everything, and it's all, I mean, the whole last 2 years have just been, 90 miles an hour, but it's all been great.
All right. Well, listen, as you know, with the tortoise and the hare, who won the race? The tortoise. So yes. You're off to a fast start. We want to keep you with that passion in our group, if you will. Have you and your friends like us at Breast Cancer Answers on our Facebook. We look forward to meeting you again. Todd and I last year were actually at the NCCN meeting, or the National Consortium, NCBC meeting. Actually, during the month of this past October, we worked with them, and during Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and we have it at breastcanceranswers.com. We have a video series of questions and things we did about the breast self-examination. So listen, Brett, what an absolute pleasure to meet you. Keep up the enthusiasm. Keep going. It's a long journey, my friend. I've been at it 28 years. So just keep joining me with your enthusiasm. Will you do that for me?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was a great honor, and I'd love to come back and and answer any more questions. I mean, if anybody wants to contact me through through the website, checkthem.org, have at it, or through here, and we'll get anything answered that's that I can and stuff. I'm open, willing, and open to answer anything. So
okay, Brett. Well, listen, thank you very much. So this ends our hangout for today. Please tune in every Friday at 11 a.m. Pacific Coast time. That's 12 noon in the Rocky Mountain states, 1 o'clock in the Central Time Zone, and 2 o'clock in the East Coast. Please join us every Friday for this kind of Google Hangout with exciting, dynamic people like Brett Miller today. We're going to continue to answer questions. We're going to continue to share with you breaking news. And finally, we will continue to bring fascinating and interesting people to be interviewed just like today. So goodbye for this week. Look forward to seeing you next week.